We're now standing on the Migovec Plateau, which is located in northwestern Slovenia, in the Triglav National Park. Triglav National Park is the only national park in Slovenia, but it's a very big one. It's also got Triglav, which is the highest mountain in Slovenia. It appears on their coat of arms, on the flag. And it's mostly made of limestone rock, such as the one I'm sitting on right now, that as cavers we know are signs that there are cave systems under the mountain. So the plateau is situated at about 1800 meters elevation above sea level, and from this vantage point we can see most of the Triglav National Park. We can also see over to Italy, the Italian plain, as far as the Dolomites and the Adriatic Sea. We have a very good view of the mountain called Kern, and it's very steeped in history because this mountain was part of the Socha front during World War I, which is also mentioned in A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. At the very start of expedition, we have a lot of kit, equipment, food, stored into crates and stored at Raune. So we drive from Tolmin, the local nearest town, up to Tolminske Raune, which is the trailhead. It's about 1 kilometer lower than the plateau. We carry all this food and equipment up to the mountain with manpower. The first week of the expedition is therefore dedicated to these carries. We take first the camping equipment, then the caving equipment, and then lots of food to survive these 5 weeks on top of the mountain. As people come and go, they will carry rubbish down and bring some more food up before they leave. The route up involves several zigzags in the forest before breaking out into the lovely meadow of Cow, where there are 3 shepherds' huts. The JSPDT, our Slovene caving club friends, have a key to the middle hut from Planina Cow. Several more switchback turns through the dwarf pine take us to a series of scree slopes. After those scree slopes, it's easy to get through what we call the portal and break onto the surface of the Migovec Plateau. Although we call this the plateau, it's not entirely flat. There are several deep potholes and valleys that one has to cross before arriving at the camping area. The camping area is itself a series of grassy slopes on which we can pitch the tents, and our living space, communal storing, cooking area is called the bivvy. The bivvy is about 7 meters deep. There's a rock bridge off which we can hang tarpaulins to collect rainwater. We recharge batteries, drill batteries, light helmet batteries, phone batteries with solar panels. So Migovec is located on the northeast corner of the Adriatic coast, and a lot of the microclimate here is dictated by these updrafts of very humid Mediterranean air meeting the cold fronts up in the mountains. The weather on Migovec is very unpredictable. It can start as a beautiful morning and then 2 hours later having thunderstorms.
That's the thing, it's few strikes but very...
Still a thunderstorm.
Yeah, like I've never seen them when you can't even see the mountain.
Sorry, not this close one. We are in Cow because it's a thunderstorm.
Yeah. Whoa, that was a really good one. I'm glad I'm not over there.
So on a day like today, when you're not caving, you can stay in the bivvy, a shake hole in the ground on this side of the plateau, and there are lots of tasks that you have to attend to. One of them is collecting pine cones for fueling the kelly kettles, and with these kelly kettles we can boil water, used then for washing up or making tea or any hot drinks that you would desire, and often we actually use that hot water to kickstart some of the meals we're doing, and that usually helps us save a lot on fuel consumption on top of the mountain. This year we were very lucky because the fuel was brought up the mountain via helicopter. On a day when you're not caving, you probably have to look after your kit. Some of it involves looking at your oversuit and patching holes that might have opened, and this is due to the nature of the trips here in Migavet, where New Cave is incredibly sharp. The surface of the plateau, so you've got all these clints and grikes formed by the dissolution of limestone. And so when you walk around on the plateau, it's very likely that you'll damage your shoes. And so if you have leather shoes, it's a good idea generally to re-wax them every so often to keep them waterproof. Other tasks involve washing up the mess tins, thinking about cooking for the evening, which usually starts at 4 p.m. You've also got to think about writing up reports about what you've done in the cave, and having the underground and overground logbooks is again very useful for future exploration. And you're probably also thinking about the next trip that you will be doing, and so you will enter a call out on the call out form. So you'd also let other people know where specifically you'll be going. You start packing rope and metal work. You start gathering your kit, which hopefully you've left out to dry from the previous day, and you assemble a team. You find teammates to go down on the ground with you, and you discuss the plans around the bivvy fire at night, or around a cup of tea in the morning, and then you just leave off and start the abseil, I guess. This year we're exploring in Prima Donna Cave, which is situated at the western edge of the plateau. So in order to access the cave entrance, you have to go down a 120 meter abseil, which means that when you go out, it's very likely that you'll catch sunset over Cairn as you prusik up to get to the surface of the plateau. Likewise, lots of people will be standing or sitting at sunset spot, keen to watch out for lights appearing on the side of the plateau, cavers returning. And so you'd return to the bivvy, share your exploration tales around a bivvy fire, and tell the other members what exactly you found, how deep it goes, and then you'd enter the survey data on the computer. There are 3 ways that we can go and explore caves. The first is to go on the surface and do what we call surface bashing, looking for surface leads or checking some leads that were tagged on the GPS and having a poke. You went to where? Oh, the Blowing Avon. That dead. So staying on the surface, grabbing a bag with a bit of digging equipment or some SRT kit to drop a shake hole and see whether at the bottom there is a way on. The second way is to go down into the known cave and then do what we call a bounce strip, so down to minus 500, 600 meters maximum. These trips usually last up to 20 hours. With a stop at one of our underground fruit stashes. The third way to explore is to go to the underground camp we've set up this year at the Déjà Vu Junction.
So we're at Stone Crop Drop, which is a cave entrance that Janet rediscovered a few days ago. And Janet was wandering around and found this promising looking entrance. Now it already had 2 splits in it, so someone else has already been in here once before. But when I got to the bottom, it wasn't clear whether they'd actually gone any further than just dropping the shaft. So there's a shaft in here that's about 10 metres deep. It's been cut by water, so it's clearly part of a cave. And at the bottom there's 2 passages going off.
So this is the entrance drop in Stone Crop Drop. So you drop in through there, come down this small pitch, and here is where Jack and Tom had a dig. The main way is round here, through that sluice. This is the other dig in that next chamber along, so the entrance is out that way. Tom is currently digging down there, that's his leg.
It looks like calcite, dark calcite, right? Yeah, it's almost like formations. It goes round to the right, so it clearly heads in the same direction as where we were. So we've been back to the cave that we now know as Venus Flytrap. This was first discovered in 1995 by a group of Imperial cavers on the 2nd ever Imperial expedition to this mountain. They had a good look around and they didn't seem to think it went anywhere, but we've come back 23 years later and we thought we'd have a little bit of a dig. And indeed we did get a little bit further, about 3 or 4 metres further than they did. So it may potentially go, but it's going to take a huge amount of work. It seems very unlikely that anyone's going to be back here for maybe another 23 years.
There's a place on Migavets called the Limestone Pavement, which has always exerted a bit of a pull for me. So every year I go back there to have a look for more surface leads that we might be able to push. One of the leads over there is called PF10, and it's a cave drafting quite strongly, so blowing out cold air. Right in the middle of the limestone pavement. It's an open shaft, and it was explored in 1995 to a depth of 120 meters. Now, very near this cave there was also a big shake hole with lots of potential windows that I thought maybe could lead to some more cave. So the idea was to go back to the limestone pavement and actually explore some of these, tick off the leads, and maybe find some new leads that we could then send other people to push. And I traversed to some of these little alcoves that unfortunately didn't go very far.
It doesn't go conclusively dead.
Oh well.
Although it does enter a very small bit of actual real cave.
So sometimes digs like Coincidence Cave, or more recently a cave that we discovered on that trip to the limestone pavement, where you needed to climb down a little bit below the face of Mig, and then we found a 10-meter long tunnel with lots of slabs of rock above and below, and then on one side some very, very smooth walls, indicative of it being a fault plane. So the cave was very linear, and the far end was choked with boulders. But now everybody knows that this is the state of that cave, and hopefully we can send some people digging there in the future. So there was always one cave which I thought would be very interesting in terms of its potential as a paleoclimate archive. So when caves contain ice and some organic material becomes entrapped in that ice, it's usually easy to date the organic material and by extension the ice in which it was entrapped. Now on Migavets there are several shake holes that contain snow, but very few actually then contain ice at the bottom, so the snow piles up and recrystallizes as ice under its own weight. One of these caves, M19, is located right in the middle of the plateau, and it's formed of 2 twin shake holes that are about 20 meters deep and contain a lot of snow. So I went with Louise and Celia, and we abseiled into the shake hole, putting in new bolts and putting in new rope, and then went down a snow slope in a little snow chamber, and then found the several next pitches.
So we're in an M19. It's just near the abseil for Prima Donna, and it's a slow slope down and then some traverses, and then we started surveying everything. We didn't have enough rope to go down the next pitches, so I've been using the Disto. So this is a laser that measures the distances, and it uploads via Bluetooth to the PDA.
So yeah, I've been downloading them to this, and from that you get all of the coordinate points and the distances, and then you can draw it. So this is where we are now. And then the passages that Louise was talking about. There's one in this little pitch down there, and then the other one we followed to here, which is where we ran out of rope.
Unfortunately, as we got to the second pitch, it became apparent that there was no real ice body in that cave. In fact, you would go down the snow slope and immediately enter in the ice-free area of the cave. But it remains as a potential lead, which is always good.
So we've got a potential lower entrance to the system, which is a few hundred metres lower than the plateau. You access it by walking down to Cow, and then down a few more zigzags, walking along towards Razor, and then in a big canyon that comes down from the face of Mig. If you climb up it a little bit, you find a small hole with a strong draft. It was discovered in 2015 and dug quite extensively by some older members of the expedition, but it didn't make a breakthrough, and it was left in 2016 and 2017 when we had some quite exciting leads in Prima Donna that kept us busy. But this year, with the pushing front quite far away now in Prima Donna, we decided to have another look at it.
Good. He reckons he can see 2 meters above into the ceiling.
Oh wow.
We might be about to break through into something, who knows what.
That's pretty.
The draft is obscene at the moment. I haven't felt it this strong yet. So, exciting!
Oh. And then you emerge to a beautiful day on the mountain.
We're just poking the rocks to discover the passage goes on, and we poked some big boulders from the ceiling, and we can see that human can fit through. We need to do a bit more digging to make it safe for someone to continue, and we can see if it connects to another cave.
We've just broken through a small floor of a chamber at the end of the dig. So there's like a 2 meter mudslide, and you push your way up it, and now there's a chamber about this sort of wide, goes up for 2-3 meters above us. You can see further.
Oh, what a cave! So we've broken into a little chamber at the top of a mud and choss slope. And it doesn't get much bigger beyond, but you can see down this tube, it opens out, the draft comes roaring through, and the only thing that stands in our way is more mud and choss, which we're very good at digging, as you can see. We indeed made a breakthrough into a small chamber. I feel like most of the work was done in 2015. We only had to dig like a few more meters to break through into this chamber, and then from there it was basically just digging out another little crawl.
So the squeeze was initially very tight for a human, but Jack mainly threw a lot of mud down, so now it's more human-sized, and we can squeeze through it, slide down on the side, and that leads to a long chamber which is tall, more than 5 meters tall.
It's a rock-floored rift. It's got real cave formation on the side. It's been carved by water. It's about 5, maybe 10 meters high. The floor is choked with boulders. There's lots of boulders hanging up above, but the way on appears to be the draft in the floor, though the draft may also go other ways higher in the rift, which we couldn't get to.
Dropped a few rocks down and they fell a long way. Like, it's a pretty big pitch if you can get through. That said, gonna need a bit more machinery, feathers and wedges and the like, to actually make any progress, we think. Although also the rock didn't look too bad. That was an interesting aspect. Found a few places where one could put a bolt.
From there we could see we were in a big rift, and we were just on a false boulder floor. So this chamber we broke into yesterday, and then this was like full of mud down here, and dug it out and put all the rocks up here. And now it's an incredibly windy little like climb down. It used to be more of a squeeze, but Ben's been digging it furious.
Am I out yet? Almost there, Harry.
We spent basically an entire day hauling like these two huge boulders out of the floor using a pulley system. And then below we accessed a tight, sharp rift. Descending this, on the next day we found we were in, well, just more rift really. Oh, actually it does open up immediately on like the side you're on. Oh, that's a lot of rocks there.
Above you?
No, to the side of me.
That is the rope going up to where all of our friends are. And that is where Reese is heading next. Where the hell does it go? Well, that wasn't deliberate, but you can hear that rock going down a long way. That's where Reese is off.
I'm hoping at some point we'll find the floor of this rift and we can sort of walk along it to hopefully something that's not a rift, because the rift is scary and full of rocks. So you may have seen us halfway up a rift. Now we're somewhere near the bottom of a rift. A series of quite tight descents through the rift, placing rebelays wherever there was rub or where I got scared, and kicking huge volumes of rock down, which would then just pool on the next ledge, and I'd have to kick them all down onto the next ledge, and so on. But now we're sort of at the bottom. Looks like quite a nice, wide in comparison to what we've been in, rift. I think that's the floor, but I could be wrong.
Okay, so potentially that is the bottom for now.
Yeah.
And what have you decided to name this place?
We reckon it's going to be Hell's Teeth. Well, it's got lots of sharp bits of rock, and it's a saying of one of our favourite NPC cavers. And still trying to follow the draft, we got to the bottom of the rift, which was about 20 or 30 metres down, and the cave just closed up in every direction.
We got to this, which is where the draft's coming from, but it's really, really narrow, so we're not going to go through there today. Maybe with some tools.
So we're having a go down in that direction. So right at the bottom, the water, what little water there was, disappeared down a tiny crack, and if you followed the draft, you eventually got to another sort of hole in the wall about this wide, and there was no way on.
Went up this muddy ledge, and at the top of this muddy ledge we found a narrow rift with a strong howling draft coming out of it, just like the entrance to Coincidence Cave. We dug at it for a little bit, but we realised it would take a lot more work to go any further. We went back down and we tried another way on below, and we found a little bit more passage with a little bit of draft, but it got too narrow, and here there was lots of rock blocking our way, the actual walls of the cave. So it's very unlikely you're going to be able to dig your way through those.
So we went down about halfway down the rift, where we could see across from us was sort of a hole in amongst all the boulders and scree and things. So I wiggled across to it, put a bolt in for a traverse line, wiggled across again into this tight space. It was obviously blocked on the one side, but there was a little drop beneath me, another bolt, and I dangled down into the drop and found nothing more than a small pile of animal shit and no way on. So, and then we surveyed out. So we think we need some persuasion for the cave to open, but for us it's a no-goer for now. Chris, where are we?
We're in Mary's Cafe.
How deep do you reckon it is?
150 metres down?
Yeah, from the entrance.
From the entrance, yeah.
And then 150 metres of cliff above that.
Yeah.
And where are we going after this?
We're going down to Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Check out some sweet leads.
Okay. I can see you're quite excited by that.
Yeah.
Chris, where are we?
Who knows? It doesn't have a name. We've
What?
got some nice mud formations here.
Yeah, check this out.
So they should take part of the name, maybe.
That's where we've come from. We've literally just come around the corner. And this little chamber, and then an immediate pitch where Davy is hurtling away furiously. How deep do you reckon it is?
It's like 30 minutes, wasn't it? 15?
Yeah, I reckon 15.
30 minutes of a row.
Davy, have you had a nice day?
Yeah, it was quite good. We went down the lead and it went somewhere, which was quite nice.
Chris,
Hello. We're back at the cafe.
back at the cafe. Where have you been today?
Hallelujah.
Yeah? Pushed a whole lead.
Found
What?
some new passage.
Yeah.
We called it Holy Moly.
What was it like?
A bit of mud. A
Yeah.
nice mud formation. It's quite nice. Followed by a 10, 7 maybe. We kept changing the numbers, so I don't
I think
know.
it started at 30.
Yeah. And we went down that.
Yeah.
And then that went for a small bit. And then there was a bigger passage, but we're already pushing it for time, so we need to get back.
Soon to the surface.
So, on my last trip underground, I went to set up the underground camp. So this is to enable us to go deeper than usual. So we have somewhere where we can stay the night and then get up and cave deeper into the system than we'd otherwise be able to go in a single day.
So we are here at underground camp. It's taken us about 6 hours to get down here from the surface. There's a fair bit of cave in the way, and we're about 500 meters underground at the moment. The final pitch we had to abseil is this rope here, so we come down from the ceiling and we land right in the middle of camp, which is very, very cozy. This is our tent. This is where we sleep. Inside here we've got 3 sleeping bags, and the tent is built up on a nice platform made out of rocks and mud and scree that we spent some time constructing when we first got here.
So the camp is at about 500 meters underground, and it's called the Manger. And this location was selected because there was water, there was very little draft, and there was a flat space. Unfortunately, when we got down there, we found out that the space was not exactly flat. And we had a 4-man tent that we had to set up on this rock ledge that was sloping, and it was very curved. So the first thing we had to do was find a load of mud and scree and rocks and build up a flat platform. So fortunately there was lots of scree and mud around, so we moved everything into position, and we managed to lay out a relatively flat platform. It took about 3 hours of work, and it was pretty exhausting, but by the end of that we could put the tent out and have a good night's sleep.
Our camp is very, very cosy. We've got all the comforts of home. Not only have we got the tent with a little lantern and a sound system, we've also got our cooking area over here. So we've got a trangier for cooking the food and a primus for cooking hot drinks. So we have lots of tea, lots of vitaminski, and lots of couscous because we need an awful lot of food to keep us going. There's our food stash there, some gear, and of course all of our caving kit hanging up. At the moment we're in all of these very, very fashionable thermals that stay as underground camp, and that keeps us nice and warm while we're wandering around. Now, a few other things to show you. If you come over here, I'll show you where we get the water from. Got this cute little setup here with a bit of string where we can collect a drip of water that's coming down the rock, and that fills a 10-litre container in about 20 minutes. So that enables us to drink a large amount of water here, which is really, really useful. And if we come back over this way, I'll show you some of our communications. Just to quickly mention, we have these very fashionable crocs for walking around an underground camp, but it can be a little bit slippery. I already had one slip today. This is our cave link. This is an incredible, very long wavelength radio device that allows us to send text messages through the rock, so we can actually send text messages all the way up to the surface and tell them what we're up to and ask them to send more couscous and cheese and things like that. Now, the way on into the cave is down here, underneath my oversuit, and there's about another 300 meters of passage which has been explored down there, and tomorrow we're going to head down and try and make it 300 and a bit meters of passage.
The next day, we were able to go very deep into the system. So we went down further than any English cavers had been before, following the old Slovenian route, down a pitch called Pivnica. And we were re-rigging as we went because the rope and the bolts were quite old, and we weren't sure they were safe. We got down to the bottom of Pivnica and started surveying our way back out of the cave. So once we got back to the camp, we woke up the other campers with tea and with food, as is traditional, and we lured them out of the sleeping bags so that we could rest. So we do a hot bedding system where some people are sleeping and some people are caving all the time, so the camp is constantly in use, which is really nice and sociable, and also means that you get a cup of tea before you actually have to get out of your sleeping bag, which is very good.
Mr. Jack, where are we?
We're at the start of the cliff abseil to Prima Donna.
Yeah.
It is late, probably about 11 o'clock. We're going down to cave for a good few hours now, and we're going to cave until about 7 AM when we'll wake them up with a cup of tea, and they'll cave and we'll sleep for potentially 12 hours during the day. Up to, yeah. So we're going to be underground for a total of about 3 days, which is a funny thing to think about.
So basically, it's Sunday now.
Just
we're gonna
about.
drop this cave and come up smiling on Wednesday morning.
Okay.
Where are we?
We're now in Mary's Calf.
Yeah? Yes, it is now 2 AM, probably.
I haven't looked at my watch in a while.
What is it, Aaron? 6? Oh, wow.
2 hours down.
Yeah.
Pretty solid.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a draft coming. Kind of Mary's Calf is really just a passage.
Yeah.
So there's quite a strong
Quite a
draft.
large chamber and quite
Draft
large.
comes in there. Draft goes out. Well, there.
It's A.B. Dub suggested that someone could bolt up a tarp on that side to block off the worst of the draft. Hope to get it a little bit warmer here.
Mr. Jack, where are we?
It's a very good question. It hasn't got a name yet.
It's a weird bit of passage.
Yeah.
All the like mud slits.
Drop down off the pitch and sit in the bivvy bag. I got, I think, about 20 minutes of sleep. Aaron listened to some music. Aaron got his head out, and then Reece said, "It's a goer, boys." And all of a sudden, we're in what, a good few metres of walking passage, 10, 15, maybe more than that.
And you're looking pretty cold, Mr. Jack. Is there any reason for that?
I'm looking pretty cold because there's a massive draft. It's like sitting in a wind tunnel.
Howling draft.
Yeah.
Just here. Ooh. There's a skeleton. Probably a bat. Looking at those long bones. Might be wings. Yeah. Can you get that little skull there as well?
Yeah, I think you're right.
What? 7 PM and we just woke up.
10 hours of listening to you snore. So we're at underground camp. This is the other team who are coming to kick us out of our beds. Nick is cooking us breakfast to convince us to leave the tent.
Or dinner.
Or dinner. Aaron, where are we?
Hello, I'm a tuner. I don't really know what's down there, but we're the deepest imperial cavers I've ever been in this system. The way on goes under the water, which you might be able to hear, which seems to just pop out of a hole in the wall.
What have you eaten there, Aaron?
Cheesy, Snoopy, chickeny noodles smash.
Is this standard for underground camp?
Nah, we've been eating so much couscous.
It looks like one big rock, but it's actually lots of little rocks. glad we got rid of that one. The wall is not made of much.
No. So Reese, what's the matter?
We descended the pitch and we dropped straight into smear zero.
So
pretty much what we expected, I guess. And now we've got the long journey out. See the surface for the first time in 3 days.
So we've just come through Tiger, which is this rather tight bit of passage. We've navigated through maybe 50 meters of crawls or stooping passage with lots of sharp rock around the place.
Well, this is the furthest point that Imperial has pushed this year. You can see a bit of paper down here, written by Tetley and James. They got here at 2:50 a.m. on Tuesday morning, and they've wished us good luck in our attempt to descend this pitch. So I've got a big bag of rope, about 60 meters, and I've got a drill and a load of metal bolts, dangling off one I've just put in there. And I guess I hope that it all goes well, and we'll find out in about an hour or so. Water dropping from the ceiling down there. Hey-oh! So, the pitch starts with a heaving rift, so it's a rift at an angle like that. Once you get to the bottom there, there's a deep pool of water with a little wall separating it from the rest of the chamber beyond. So it's like one of those classic swimming pools at hotels where you can float around and not see anything underneath. After that I put some bolts in and started descending, and I can see how big this chamber really is, and it's truly massive. I cannot see the bottom with my light on the brightest setting, and this is a pretty bright light. For comparison, in TTT, which we know is 50 meters deep, I can see the bottom with my light on, so I suspect the chamber may be even larger than that from where I got to. What Tetley and James could see was actually the far wall of the chamber, so we intersect a large sinuous river chasm perpendicularly, so the rift comes down and the chasm's going along like this, and so what they could see was just the far wall. That's nowhere near the true floor. As I got down there, I put in 2 bolts for a Y-hang. As I dropped down, the wall went away from me, so I was suddenly dangling in the middle of nowhere, and I kind of freaked out. So at that point, there's not much point continuing to cave. I know, because I've done this before, you start making pretty stupid decisions. So I've decided to call it a day for now. We've had a pretty epic trip just getting here. I want to be able to make it back out. So I think we might have to leave this for someone with slightly more stomach to come back here and finish the job. But it's an incredible place, so I hope that someone has a chance to see what is down there at the bottom.
So we're now standing inside Monatip Cave, and Monatip was discovered in 2007. In 2008, one of the branches was explored, and then the big chamber of Alcatraz was then found, which then connected to Prima Donna. And in 2016, on a reconnaissance trip, we found 250 meters of mostly crawling to stooping passage called Cloaca Maxima. And so it was very exciting to finally pop out into this 40-meter Avon. Back in 2016, I had spotted quite a few leads that I thought someone should go back to. Thankfully, there was one team who went to push the undescended pitch, and they found a 17-meter drop followed by a 30-meter drop, and then they reconnected into the lower passages of Monatip. And so today, the objective was to tick off all the other leads in Cloaca Maxima. The first one that we looked at was a climb off a muddy chamber, which soon closed down. The second was a muddy crawl that opened up for a little bit, about 20 meters, and then closed down to an SRT off squeeze, which I went through, to get to a very, very small chamber where it was possible to turn around. So there is no way on. The third, last lead that we wanted to check was this unclimbed Avon, and thought would be about 10 meters. And so we bolt climbed up about 10 meters up this Avon, only to find that it continued a further 5 or 6 meters, and that there was no such horizontal passage to be found. So now we will climb down, descend into Alcatraz, and then climb out of Prima Donna.
We do something really, really cool, which is go where no one has ever been before. Like, there's nothing that I can do to describe the feeling of getting to the front and looking onwards and finding this passage that no one has ever seen, with no footprints in, pristine mud and sand that you get to mess up and leave your own footprints in. And the sort of thrill of doing that is incredible. Like, you never know what you're going to find. But even this year, I've not had a particularly good year so far for finding new cave. And it's still something I would come back to again and again, because it's just a mountain we live on with our friends for 5 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, however long you're here, and you just have fun.
I'll go back to Mr. Jack because he's well lit. Mr. Jack, where are we?
We're in a cave, Reese.
Why?
I don't know.
What the fuck are you wearing?
It's a hat. What does it look like?
Why are you wearing it?
Because it's fucking freezing.
Where are we, Mr. Jack?
We're in a cave.
At the bottom of this tank. Yeah, Tony, I feel like we should probably.
I'm trying to do 2 things at once. Do it. Put it on.
Oh God! Then you flew it back.
Yeah, that's better.
Are you going to give me this hot water before I finish the washing up? I don't think this short piece of film reflects the 2 hours I've spent washing up.
It has to be a close-up of like opening the wax.
Really close. Okay.
I use sport wax, and I liberally coat.
Christ. Typical. Brand new passage and it's full of turds. We could call it the turd runway, like in The Private Eye. Yeah. Oh yeah, that didn't get as many laughs as I thought it would.
It's like...
Is this
Fuck this over suit. Sorry. Yes. Sorry, you mean like a focused face?
It doesn't really have the same effect.
So you wouldn't mind if it wasn't still covered in anal?
Engage unless you're pressing it anyway.
Is that the slowest ever? Oh my God!
So soothing. It's doing something. Who's next? I think I might pass.
Cave fish.
I can't put on thermals.
Fall asleep.
I've got. Chris, do you have a problem, or is it just?
Not sure I want to take an narcoleptic cave.
And then your head goes into their arse.
Just have a conversation about having a conversation.
That's what we're doing. You've got to have like occasional hand gestures to make it look interesting.
Because Peggy is filming us, but don't look around.
Yeah, don't look at him.
There you go. So it's the Bedeau shape at the top, and then. Never mind. That's great.
Oh, there was a tiny piece of onion that fell into the tuna. It's really nice. Is this okay? Is that any?
I like bringing salami down.
Well, yeah, salami's good.
But not like...
Wait. Breathe heavily. That's quite good.
So.
That's great.
Oh, that's bad.
Let's start again. So.
It's a family-friendly video. Yep.
Bottom touches.
I'm gonna touch the bottom.
Touch some bottoms. Well, look at us now. We've got nudes.
Gosh.
You still filming?
Yeah.
So it's psychopath.
Crouching Jimmy.
hidden shake hole. Could you walk a little bit further to your left, please? You're ruining the shot.
Don't give it.
They do not care whatsoever. No fucks for Jimmy's ambush was a complete failure. B-roll, great B-roll. Yeah, that's
beautiful calf as well. Calf? Calf?
Which is the country's national park. Oh, I hate this.
The cave. The Perry. Only one can survive. Ignore all the rattler on the floor.
What a view I've got.
Cheeky video. Making it look easy. Struggle more, Perry. Yeah, there we go.
I didn't have my caving kit, so I'm just nude.
The dig progresses well. Our dig tray is full of rattler and food. Mr. Jack.
Yes.
Why are you wet?
That's okay, we're connected, Reese.
Okay, right. It seems to be recording, yeah.
Okay.
That's terrifying.
I should descend the pitch, because if I could descend it, then any fucking...
Yeah, look at that. Whoa. Jimmy is so bored, he's just digging.
Have we got Perry for a dog? Bottles of wine. I think it was a good dream.
Broke free. Broke free.
We accidentally filmed Mr. Jack's death.
I love you. Please God, no. I love you. Leave it there.